one of the biggest things with mission is that it is such a fundamental part of retention, and it is a fundamental part of your organizational culture. So asking that question about Jedi initiatives, one of the reasons that it is such an important thing is because absolutely it is the right thing to do. This is, what health centers were built upon. This are the values and the mission of the health center. But it also underlines the organizational culture that is being built. As you saw, many people did answer there where it's like, yes, we have something, but nothing's really happening from that. How do you change that into this culture of retention, really a culture of just organizational wellness overall? And this is so important for leadership. You have to be engaged with your workforce. And when I say leadership, really talking about the individuals who are in the C-suite, but also directors and managers, people who are able, to be decision makers in this, or be the advocates for the other staff members, who are going back up, bringing this information back up to those in the leadership position. Ideally, that sort of two-way communication is there with anyone in the staff, but we also know that's not always the case. But you have to be engaged. You have to be consistent. So all of those individuals who answered, that they know something is happening, but they haven't seen anything, that's where you lose that consistency. That has to be there. Also, there's a lot to be said about a positive work culture. Nobody wants to go to a place where they are not happy. And especially now with the pandemic, with everything that has gone on, and I'm sure all of you know, people are okay with resigning if that is not where they want to be. And at the end of the day, the turnover is going to be so much more expensive than simply building a positive culture. And again, transparency. There are some things we cannot be transparent about, obviously, but for the most part, make sure that people feel that they're part of fundamental decisions, that they're part of the culture. That's why they're there. They bring their values, they bring their mission-driven focus, but they're also engaging with the culture. So when we talk about retention, we have retention planning. And one of the things that we say is that it starts with the mission. We're going to talk about all of these different areas today, but as I said, it starts with a mission. And what is so important with the mission is that leadership has to reflect those day-to-day values through, those values through day-to-day actions, and they have to align with the health center's mission. That is critical if you want to keep people there. One of the easiest ways to lose individuals is for, you have a great mission, yet externally, that is something you're practicing in the way that you serve your patients, you serve your community. But those principles are not being brought back to the workforce. There's going to be an immediate disconnect. So this is what I was talking about with communication. Now, nothing is ever perfect, but the more that you can create a dialogue, not be dismissive of what people say. And if you are going to listen, put things into action. You have to change, you have to be adaptable, and try to have as much of a strength-based perspective as possible. And what it means, we hear oftentimes with, for example, CEOs or other people in the C-suite of, people come to them, it's like, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. But sometimes there aren't solutions. You have to be creative. You have to take a strength-based perspective for all this. And as I said, change is inevitable, it's constant, it's essential. If you want to be able to compete in this market, if you want to retain your workforce, recruit the right people, because at the same time, the job announcements you're putting out there, the interview questions you're asking, all of that is going to reflect to the person who's interviewing what is the culture of that organization. So you need to embrace, you need to adapt, and you need to follow the mission that you have. So this is another question, and I did want to just quickly get to this. And the reason that I'm asking this question is because we're saying, I'm saying a lot about mission, all of those things. But mission needs to be revisited on a regular basis. And please don't use this code, use the other one. We realized that that was incorrect on there. If the health center has never revisited the mission again, there is a problem there because things change consistently. You have to constantly revisit to see, where do our values still stand? How are we working with our community and with our workforce? So I'm going to stop sharing so Helen can pull up the Mentimeter, and I'm excited to see what everyone has said. And again, you may not know. Okay, so most people, it's greater than 10 years. Okay, oh, every year, less than 10 years. Great, never, I see as it changes. Okay. Okay, so it seems to be pretty even on the less than 10 year, more than 10 years, and never. Oh, now never is winning. With never, it is so important. Again, the pandemic changed things. The fight for social justice, for racial equality, for all of these things, these need to be revisited into the mission, because at the end of the day, that's the core of what you're doing. And for the workforce, it is incredibly important. So thank you everyone for that. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to get everyone thinking, you know, how do you advocate to leadership about the importance of revisiting your mission? Okay. So Helen, whenever you're ready to stop sharing, I'll go back to the slides. And as I said, you know, mission is that bridge to all that we're doing with retention and recruitment planning. It lays out the values of your organization. It drives the work and the services that are offered. You know, the mission is just as important for the patients as it is for the employees, as it is for the community. There really should not be a disconnect on this. And the reason that we really are spending so much time on this is because it's such a fundamental part of the organizational culture, but also you don't ever want to be an organization who doesn't support its workers, but hides behind the mission that is being provided. That is not going to be effective communication. That's not going to be effective for anyone, and that's surely not going to help with retention. And this is something in talking to leadership, you know, that could be said that way. Now we're going to talk about how to go to them with data, all of these different things, but bringing it back to what health centers were meant to do can be really powerful. So I was trying to kind of go through this to make sure we had enough time to do our breakout groups. And so basically this one, in the breakout groups that each of you are going into, what's going to happen, going to be the same breakout groups that you did before. Most likely for the Star Center team, you'll have us kind of rotating in and out, so you know we can help facilitate. We're going to have 20 minutes in the breakout group. I want you to select someone to take notes and select someone to report out. You're going to get a few documents. You're going to get like an online Google Docs document that's going to have different slides. And on those, you're going to record what you talk about, what you discuss in the breakout group. And you're also going to have an activity document. So you don't have to completely complete the activity document. This is really those key areas as you start building your retention and recruitment plan, your comprehensive workforce plan. So what you can do with all of these different activity documents is, as you lead the workshop these 2 days, use them to then build your comprehensive workforce plan, or at least some of the core areas in there. So, and I believe it's going to be put in the chat. Yep, I see that Mariah put in the chat the brainstorming, and those are the Google slides that you will have. And then depending on the group that you go into, just line it up with the number that's on the Google slide, and you'll be able to put your comments in there. And then the person who takes notes, you will be writing it in there. The person who reports out, when we come back to the room, please have somebody ready. And again, with the document, that's for you to keep and work on for your comprehensive workforce plan.
And I just wanted to add one thing, Michelle. So, yeah, so I know you have 20 minutes in your breakout groups. If you want to spend the first like 5 or 10 minutes looking at that mission inventory and really thinking about it, because I know it's going to probably take some time for folks to do that, and then spend 10 minutes discussing it and filling out the visualization sheet. And so, yeah.
Yes, thank you for that, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Don't expect to jump in and suddenly like get started. Please take time, look over the documents, and then write up your notes.
Yeah. So start with mission inventory sheet, and then look at the brainstorming and visual.
I am on mute. I keep forgetting the double muting. As we do the report out, I'm not going to pull up the slides just so that we can kind of have a conversation with each other, having a really great conversation in our breakout groups. So we'll go group by group. Okay, so I do pull up the Google slide, and maybe you could share that instead, so we could see what everybody has written. And Suzanne, sorry, were you gonna?
No, I was just going to say that we'll also make these available as well, just so you guys can have them to look back on and see what other people are doing around mission, so you can get some ideas about how to incorporate mission into your workforce plans.
Perfect. Yes. We want to make sure everything you write, you talk about all that stuff that is written on these slides and the assignments, that you're able to have access to that. Okay, so who is the speaker for group 1?
So that would be me.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can find the document.
Oh.
So I can no longer see. I can't see the document anymore.
Let me see. Helen, can you go to that slide for group 1?
Can you all not see that on mine? What do you see?
No, just the intro slide, the meeting the needs of, so we'll pull that up so then at least you could see it through the sharing. If not, I'm happy to share as well.
Okay, is that better?
Okay, great.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, so which elements of the assignment are part of our existing strategy to help employees feel connected to work and the health center? I talked about quarterly staff meetings that we have where we actually review our mission, vision, and objectives. We speak to the overall goals and objectives of the organization, any status updates from the last meeting, any areas of emphasis that we will be looking toward during or focusing in on during the next quarter. We also, share any updates on new systems and processes that were implemented. I use the example ECW was recently implemented. So that was a huge undertaking for our clinical as well as operational teams. And then we do reinforce our mission through displaying it on our ADP landing page. That's the page anytime somebody logs in, they put in their time, request time off, they will land on that, they see it. We also highlight our core standards of behavior along with the vision of the organization. So those are some things that we do, and we also utilize morning huddles, even on our admin side, just as our clinical team does as well. Pepper talked about bi-monthly staff meetings. I said originally they were just provider meetings, but they've since expanded that. They implemented an intranet system to make announcements, have staff brag on each other. We call those wins, by the way. And then implement internal instant messaging system. That's something we've done as well. Ping board, I forgot to mention that. That was something we implemented over the summer. Teams can bring up and see pictures of staff members, especially helpful with new staff. See, they can bring up the org chart for the whole organization or just their specific department. Then Danielle talked about, so missions displayed on the internet as well. Danielle talked about establishing an intranet to keep folks updated. They use Paylocity, which is a community tool, and working on starting to use that as a platform for shout outs. And again, similar, sounds exactly like Pingboard, by the way. And so the platform folks use every day to sort of keep things visible. Mission is out there and displayed pretty well. Terry Ann, they have quarterly meetings as well. Utilize the ADP community section to share updates, work anniversaries, etc. Has a marketing team that is a source of information for the organization. We do that as well, and we try to stay on messaging with marketing. So we actually tap into them for many of our HR related communications and campaigns. Brandy, they have bi-monthly provider meetings, information sent out to staff in the quarterly newsletter with everything going on at each site. Employees can add personal information if they wish. They also implemented a new chat system to share instant messaging for better communication. And then also they have monthly manager meetings.
Great, that is wonderful. And one thing I really liked about, I feel like there was kind of a theme with Group One was really aligning with marketing the mission, making sure it's on the website, with job announcements, that's another place I would say, put your mission in there. So that's great. And yeah, it really is also part of your marketing tools. So thank you so much, Al. Okay, Group Two. So I see we only have one person in the that wrote notes, but who is going to be the speaker? And if it is Mike, please feel free.
Okay, I am a physician recruiter, so just wanted to give it my perspective in terms of on the front end, okay, of this approach. It's really a matter of connecting with the prospective employee. Certainly connecting to see, does this person really have the willingness to serve in a capacity to really meet our needs, and certainly how do we assure that they're going to be a good fit? Okay, it works both ways. So we really need to make sure that our applicants, the candidates that we're moving forward, really have that drive, the motivation to serve our patient populations. Disadvantage, certainly working with a federally qualified health center, the communities that we serve, the underserved, okay, we really have a unique perspective that we need to really acquire, okay, from our applicants, that they have this willingness to serve, not something that's going to be learned or developed along the way. So really need to tap into that fit for our culture, and certainly make sure that we're getting the best candidates possible. Evidently, that's going to have an impact on the longevity of that candidate, the employee, once they're on board, and then everything that follows from that point going forward. It really starts on the front end of our initial conversations to really make sure that we're hitting this home, that we're hitting it correctly, and that the candidate is equally enthusiastic and willing to move forward and help with the direction of being a part of our organization as well.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And I do have to say, actually, I noticed that you're from CCI, I believe Al is as well. I have a lot of friends that have gone to work there. And I know it was one who went first, and then she has basically just been great at letting other people know what your mission is and your organizational culture is. And it has ended up being a lot of people that I know that have gone to work at CCI. So what you're doing is definitely working. And, the reason that I say that is I really also want to highlight that for the other health centers here, the people who you have in your health centers, like the workforce you already have, are excellent ambassadors for the mission, for all of those things, to really recruit a diverse and talented workforce. So just because I know CCI, I just had to point that out. So y'all are doing great.
Well, Michelle, thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I think it's a tool that every health center can use. It's there's so many people that are just care so deeply about the health center mission, the health center world. So, you know, it's like, let's be our own recruiters as well. And yep, absolutely, Mike. So next slide, please. Or sorry, not group 3. I'm so used to saying next slide now. So who, well, I guess it is the next slide. So who will be speaking for group 3? And that's the group that I was in. And I do want to say one thing. Ashley had asked when we speak about this, is it, you know, better to send out emails, text messages to connect with staff, or have those sort of more one-on-one conversations? And one of the things that I had mentioned when we talked about these missions, these values, the organizational culture, people are definitely pulled everywhere, which is what Ashley had mentioned. So may not always be feasible, but even if it is like an all staff meeting, to actually verbally hear from leadership and their, you know, what they're putting into place regarding these things can be incredibly valuable. And then other ways as time allows, you know, sending those emails and all of that. But I just wanted to follow up because we got out of the out of the breakout room at that point. But yeah, so who would like to share?
I can go and share. This is Ashley. We talked about how pretty much across the board, the mission is discussed during the interview process, so that we can kind of filter out people that may not fit with that mission or be there for that mission. And then during orientation, onboarding, we all have different ways of discussing it during that time. But we did think that, oh, maybe during a more robust onboarding process to continue to discuss that, because I know that's something that we fall short with. But yeah, just being more transparent throughout their time within the company and not just at orientation.
Absolutely. Yeah, because oftentimes, you know, we use it for onboarding. And actually later on too, we're going to talk about how orientation and onboarding really should be separate things. So one of the great things is you really can present that in the orientation, you know, just kind of get somebody to know. And as you continue the onboarding process of really, you know, just constantly, or, you know, reminding of those values and what it means to be in that health center. Thank you so much, Ashley. Okay, so group 4. So who is the person who is reporting out? And then after that, just so all of you know, we will take a 30-minute lunch break. So group 4.
Anybody from that group want to just speak to what you guys talked about?
Yeah, I think Monica may have just unmuted, if I'm not mistaken.
No, we actually, we didn't have a designated speaker. So sorry, I try to hang back a little bit because I tend to be a little overbearing. So,
no worries. Would you like to be?
Yeah, no, I will be happy to take a stab at it, and everybody else, please jump in. This is a team effort here. So yeah, so we have a little bit of a hiccup getting rolling, but I think that overall our team members really sensed a presence of the mission throughout the organizations in various places, especially with respect to recruiting, hiring, and onboarding, to make sure that we were hiring for fit in all of our organizations. I think it was Patty who mentioned, you know, often people default to just wanting to hire somebody to do the work because we're always so short-staffed, but it's really a very laborious, time-intensive effort, and it's very expensive. So if anyone needs leverage, it costs about $85,000 at a minimum per person to bring somebody into an organization. So really thinking about, hey, you know, sharing that data, as we like to do data-informed decision-making in HR these days, and you can bring that statistic to bear. Really just, we were really focused on the recruiting aspect of things, of really making sure that we were matching candidates with our organizational culture, These were themes prevalent in our conversation. And then we had some discussion regarding how we keep the mission alive, and thinking about mission as a practice rather than just a statement. So kind of as one of the other groups mentioned, or I think actually as you mentioned, Michelle, really thinking about how we ask our employees to be ambassadors of that mission. And where I work, it's actually a very special place in the sense that people are connected to the mission and their coworkers, probably above anything else that brings them to ICHS and keeps them here. So we actually, I've been here 4 months, so I'm not taking credit for any of this, but we do a really phenomenal job of keeping people connected to the mission. That's one of our primary avenues for engagement. And Heather was mentioning that in her particular case, she works for a faith-based organization. So initially that was actually a detractor for recruiting. So she removed that statement from her postings and opted to have individual conversations about what that actually means at her organization to help people understand, so that they weren't excluding people based on what the genesis of their mission was.
Yeah, that is so, and I think that goes back, that's so incredibly important. It goes back to, let's revisit our mission, but if something is just a fundamental value of the health center, having those conversations with the individuals you're recruiting, Heather, I agree with you. It's just, yeah, Monica did a great job. But Heather, that is such a great way to talk to your potential recruits and really have a discussion. And the time spent on that is so valuable because it helps you see, are we getting the right person into this position? As Monica has on here, losing an employee is incredibly expensive. Turnover is incredibly expensive, but then also has a ripple effect on the whole organization. If you see a large amount of turnover, people, they get worried. Like, why is that happening? Is it going to happen to me? Is it going to be voluntary? Is it not? So, the more that we can just really, make people feel secure, and a big part is that mission, having those conversations, the better the organizational culture can be. So we are going to take our break in a little bit, but I just wanted to see if anybody had any final comments that they would like to make.
Not really a comment. My question is more for Monica, and I was just curious as how did she get to that level of detail to come up with the 85,000? What all did she factor in?
Yeah, so this was actually information that I looked at. I was working at Boeing at the time, and went to a conference. Some of this was mentioned, and I was like, good Lord, that's high. So, but then I sort of broke it down. I started thinking about it. So I can't give you the hard data, and actually that data is a little bit old, so it's probably more than that right now. But when you think about the time spent, so first of all, if you are utilizing a recruiting service, you can immediately factor that in. Then you have to allocate certain amounts of time to with your staff. So who is doing the recruiting, who is doing the onboarding, who are the teammates that are taking away from other things that they could be doing to help ramp up that individual employee. You're looking at the cost associated with doing all of the paperwork and all of that time involved, the resources needed to build training and administer that training. I'm trying to think what else is in there. That's just kind of on the front end. There's some other things going through that, time away from that. I mean, there's all sorts of like piddly things like, hey, are you taking your new employee to lunch when they're onboarding? How do you create that engaged employee? So all of those things that go into it really add up that people don't often consider. So, if you wanted to think about it for your organization, like what are all of the things that you do to hire a new employee? What does that look like? And then when you're thinking about how do we keep folks here, like what is the investment in engagement? What is the investment in training? What is the investment in like perks and benefits and swag and all of those things? And then when you lose someone, what is the impact? Are you then creating overtime for other people? That's not even included in that. those are just downstream impacts of losing employees. So, I mean, you can go on and on and on.
Right.
So when you have somebody push back, say, look, we just need to get somebody in here. I mean, it very clearly, no, we need to get the right person in here, right? So.
And I wanted to just jump in really quickly, Val. We have a turnover calculator, and we're going to link it later in today's workshop where you can calculate. Oh, perfect. Helen already put it in there, where you can calculate the cost of turnover specifically for your health center. But I think Monica just put it so beautifully, like looking at so many different factors and then taking into account also what are we, what is our cost for retention and recruitment? And I'm sure that the turnover is going to end up being way more expensive than the other, but we also have that calculator so that all of you can use it. And again, thank you so much, Monica. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to take a 30-minute break. So if we could all be back at 1:25, that would be great.